आगे थोड़ा सा हवाई हेलो
Getting in all details, these are pictures in fact coming in of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Saudi Crown Prince who are meeting today to sign key deals on energy and agriculture. Prime Minister Modi and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman are holding talks in Hyderabad House in Delhi today. Our Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan is keeping a very close eye on that big story. Geeta, in fact, this really is clearly, in fact, building on the momentum from G20. There are key agreements that both countries are looking at signing, including energy and agriculture. Just give us a sense of how things are going to move today as far as this meeting is concerned.
Well, again, like you very rightly pointed out, Sneha, this is a very significant visit that is coming on the heels of and just after the G20 Summit that concluded very, very successfully. Now we are looking at the state visit that has begun of the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Saud. The fact that Mohammed bin Salman bin Saud, the fact that this is a visit that comes at a time when Saudi Arabia and India are trying to forge greater strategic relations in itself is key. There are two very important agreements that are going to be signed, Sneha, on the in the areas and sectors of agriculture and energy. It is a tightly packed schedule for the Crown Prince. He has various engagements on the multi-dimensional partnership between the countries. It has begun with a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, followed by the bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Prime Minister.
India, well done, and we're going to work to create a great future for both countries. Thank you.
Okay, these are pictures, in fact, of Prime Minister Narendra Modi along with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and we're getting you all the details. Also, President Draupadi Murmu at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, wherein they proceed then to Hyderabad House for a round of bilaterals with the Saudi Crown Prince. Both the countries, India and Saudi Arabia, are looking at several key agreements, like Geeta was pointing out, including that in the energy and agriculture sector, and that is expected to be signed. This, remember, is the Saudi Crown Prince's second state visit to India since February 2019. Gaurav Sawant also, in fact, our managing editor, continues to be with us. Gaurav, we've been talking about how India really is looking at the momentum from the G20 to then get Saudi Arabia also to sign several key agreements, and also a close and warm relationship that both the countries are sharing, Saudi Arabia and India. A lot of business to be done as well, a lot of deliverables from these bilaterals, isn't it?
There indeed is. The Saudi Crown Prince is 38 years old, 1985 born, very young but extremely dynamic. Both India and Saudi Arabia have invested a lot in this relationship. It's a very warm relationship, and both countries see this as a game changer, not just for the region but for the world. There are bigger dynamics at play here. You'd notice post-2015, there was a huge investment, that India made in West Asia, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. Our overall relationship with the Middle East is perhaps one of our strongest pillars, one of the strongest pillars of India's foreign policy. And this is now being taken altogether to a new level. This engagement that we saw, a multilateral engagement yesterday, on the sidelines of G20, day before yesterday, when the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor was signed. Once this is in action, this would actually be a game changer. India realizes it, Saudi Arabia realizes it, and look at the comfort, that the Saudi Crown Prince has with the Indian leadership. With his interactions with Prime Minister Narendra Modi have been extremely warm throughout. the large Indian diaspora that lives in Saudi Arabia. Also keep in mind, 175,000 Hajis, go for Hajj every year, and Saudi Arabia plays a very critical role in facilitating it for India. And this again is something that ties the two countries together. It's a civilizational relationship. It's not, something that started very recently. This is a major, impactful civilizational relationship, Sneha.
Also, as far as the big takeaway is concerned, Gaurav, give us a sense of what really is expected from this bilateral that we're going to see between India and Saudi Arabia.
The agreements on agriculture, the agreements on energy, they are extremely critical on Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince's visit. And all throughout, the effort has been to widen the engagement between India and Saudi Arabia, to deepen this engagement between India and Saudi Arabia. Because look at every aspect of this relationship, how it's proven to be a game changer. On radical Islamist terrorism, Saudi Arabia stands very strongly with India. In isolating a state sponsor of terror, Saudi Arabia stands very closely with India. And had we seen this in such strong terms earlier, we hadn't. The Saudi Arabia cracked the whip. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, they've cracked the whip on Pakistan's support to terrorism, and they've warmed up to India. Look at the kind of anti-publicity that Pakistan and elements close to Pakistan tried to do before the visit of the Saudi Crown Prince to India. Many arguing that maybe he will not come. Many also saying that, he may stop by at Pakistan before he comes. Pakistan went down on a bent knee requesting the Saudi Crown Prince to drop in before he came to India. But that did not happen. There is no hyphenation anymore between India and China, in India and Pakistan. Modi MBS meet really promises to be a game changer in the times ahead. The Strategic Partnership Council meeting is extremely critical, and that shows how this relationship is being taken to a new level. The fastest growing economy in G20 and the second fastest growing economy in G20. The largest economy in the world, fastest growing economy in the world. When they come together, you can only imagine the positive impact it would have on the two countries, on their bilateral ties, and on the region at large.
That's right. Gaurav, be with us. I'm just going to come back to you in a moment from now. Geeta also continues to be with us. Geeta, just talk to us a little about what is expected as far as both the countries' efforts to, foster people-to-people ties. And we're talking about 2.4 million Indians, in fact, who are, in fact, living in Saudi Arabia, which continues to be, rather, a cornerstone, really, of the relations between both the countries.
Well, when it comes to people-to-people contact, like Gaurav said, Sneha, there is a huge aspect of not just religious connect between the two countries, but the fact that Saudi Arabia holds key to one of the most important remittances that come from abroad. There's a huge Indian population that lives in Saudi Arabia, works in
Okay, connecting with Geeta Mohan in a moment from now. Geeta, if you can hear me, we're talking about people-to-people ties and how that can be enhanced here. I'll just go back to Geeta in a moment from now. Geeta and Gaurav, in fact, we were talking to Geeta about the fact that Indian diaspora, 2.4 million people from India living in Saudi Arabia, and people-to-people contact and how that can be bolstered really continues, in fact, to be on the agenda as well.
Saudi Arabia, the workers there, a lot of the working population there is from India and from different parts of our country. Their work, their life, and how you improve their living and working conditions is something that India has repeatedly stressed on. And Saudi Arabia, given the warm ties the two countries enjoy, given the investment the two countries are making in each other, and this goes beyond financial investment in each other. This is investment in the relationship. All of that is being taken to a new high. Again, bilateral relationship, very important. Multilateral visit, very important. Engagement, very important. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, he has a grand vision for his country. He wants to make Saudi Arabia one of the most powerful strategic partners, one of the most powerful economies in the world, and a forward-looking country. He's carried out a series of reforms in his country. When you speak to people in Saudi Arabia, so there is one view that the Western, press projects, and there is one view that his people project about the reforms he's trying to build in his own, to bring in his own country, at a pace that many argue is much faster than what people would have liked in Saudi Arabia, but he is still doing it. So he's seen as someone who wants to take his country forward. In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we've seen what's happened during the G20, Delhi declaration. We've seen how bilateral engagements are all aimed at taking relationships forward. This engagement with Saudi Arabia is extremely crucial. Strategically, it's very crucial. In India's war on radical Islamist terror, and India repeatedly insists it is a global war on extremism and radicalization. This is where this relationship is extremely important. And of course, that huge infrastructure project that was inked on the sidelines of G20. That promises to be a game changer. There's a second leg to that. There's an Africa corridor that is being talked about. There is East India to West India train corridor that is being talked about. Imagine all the goods from Southeast Asia coming into India first. India gains there, then travel through India, then go to Mumbai, from Mumbai by ship to the Middle East, and then by train across, then again by ship to Europe. Look at the huge link and the impact that a dedicated corridor will have, and how it will boost economies of Southeast Asia, India, Middle East, and then Europe. Then the Africa leg of that corridor, how that will instantly connect people of Africa. So there is an attempt to link up the world in a very positive way that will benefit people of our countries and of the region and the world. That's a huge project that all the countries have come along. And Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is trying to take his country forward in a very big way through some of these projects.
Right. Be with us, Gaurav. Just going to come back to you in a moment from now. And Geeta also, in fact, I'm being told is back with us. Trade again, Geeta, is going to be the prime focus here. Interestingly, India really is Saudi Arabia's second largest trading partner. That's huge. With Saudi Arabia being India's fourth largest trading partner.
Well, that's right. India and Saudi Arabia share important ties when it comes to trade, but trade mostly is energy related. And that's the reason why you see the balance of trade advantages or tilted towards Saudi Arabia more than towards India. But we are looking at a major push. We're looking at economic cooperation where the two sides can cooperate in the manufacturing and the services sector. So there have been very important arrangements that came about. The Strategic Partnership Council that is co-chaired by the two leaders and will be co-chaired today as well is an important aspect on all those fronts, not just energy security and political, but also economic and trade. Everything is interrelated. And that's why the economic and investment aspect of the Strategic Partnership Council, it would be highlighted and would look into how the two countries can cooperate in the manufacturing and the services sector, Sneha.
Be with us, Geeta. Gaurav, just coming back to you for more on that in a moment from now. In fact, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia had, in fact, a brief interaction with the press. Let's just listen into what he said.
I'm very glad in India it's well done with a great agenda and a lot of announcements that will benefit both country and G20 country and the whole world. So I want to say to India, well done, and we're going to work create a great future for both countries. Thank you.
But in fact, from the Saudi Crown Prince talking about the fact that G20 has been successful, well done, is what he said. We're talking about the friendship between India and Saudi Arabia in terms of trade, in terms of people-to-people ties. Both the countries and both the leaders, in fact, share a warm equation. Big on the agenda is the India-Gulf Economic Corridor. I'm going to get in Geeta Mohan to talk to us a little about the Economic Corridor. That really has been, the conversation about the Economic Corridor, rather, has been buzzing. Okay, just going back to Geeta in a moment from now, let's go back once again to what the Crown Prince said.
It's well done with a great agenda and a lot of announcements that will benefit both country and G20 country and the whole world. So I want to say to India, well done, and we're going to work to create a great future for both countries. Well done with a great agenda and a lot of announcements that will benefit both country and G20 country and the whole world. So I want to say to India, well done, and we're going to work to create a great future for both countries.
What the Saudi Crown Prince has said. Geeta, in fact, continues to be with us. Geeta, a lot of conversation about the India-Middle East Economic Corridor. Talk to us a little about what has been proposed and what is the transport project that is going to link India to Middle East and Europe?
Well, that's a multilateral program between India, Middle East and Europe. A lot of questions being asked about where would the funds come from. This, in all probability, is a rare instance where Saudi Arabia will not be the key funder of the project. They are looking at other agencies as well, and that's why in that photograph that you see when the project was being launched, the IMEC project was being launched, there was the World Bank president standing right beside the leaders, Ajay Banga, which means that they are looking at the World Bank also to be a key funder of the project. It is a very important one, a connectivity project, Sneha, that will counter China. But if I could just go back to what the Crown Prince said, at a time when he's having his state visit, he came at a critical juncture. The most difficult and challenging of the G20s that we've ever covered. And the Indian administration managed to bring about a joint communique that certainly was acceptable to all. And those who still had concerns and had issues with the joint communique, nonetheless gave in and agreed to a joint communique for the better good of ensuring the continuity of the G20. And that's why the praises and that came India's way from the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, saying that a job well done. An impressive projection of India's might on the global stage. And that is quite evident with how the world leaders came together to wish Prime Minister Modi and to stand by Prime Minister Modi. So this is going to be a very significant state visit. And like I said earlier, there are important engagements and agreements to be signed in the energy and agriculture sector. But also the Strategic Partnership Council meet that will take place between the two leaders. That will be significant.
The talks begin at 11 o'clock at Hyderabad House in Delhi. Geeta, just take us through the details of the itinerary also. Otherwise, what after that, what is expected?
Well, like the visuals display themselves, Sneha, the first agenda item in this entire one-day itinerary of the Crown Prince is the ceremonial reception, and the ceremonial reception has ended, which will be followed by the bilateral talks between Prime Minister Modi and the Crown Prince, and followed by the co-chairing of the Strategic Partnership Council. In the evening, he'll have a meeting with President Murmu, and later, the very same evening, he's going to fly back to Saudi.
All right, that's the itinerary of the Saudi Crown Prince, who is going to be holding bilaterals. Just in a few moments from now at Delhi's Hyderabad House, and Gaurav Sawant, our managing editor, is also back with us for more details on that as far as the deliverables of this meeting and these meetings really is concerned. Gaurav.
You know, Sneha, what is extremely crucial, this is the relationship between India and Saudi Arabia. The trade relationship that is being taken forward. This is a relationship that has existed from the times of the Sindhu Saraswati Sabhyata. So from the Indus Valley civilization, we've had a trade relationship with Saudi Arabia. Now that relationship being taken forward to the next level, and the two leaders, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia and Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, they understand the importance of that civilizational relationship. Then when you take it to the next level in the 21st century, it actually shows what this means, what this relationship means to both the countries. And it's a relationship that's been through its ups and downs. But like you and I were discussing, since 2015, India has invested extensively in our relationship with the Middle East, with West Asia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he's traveled to the Middle East between 2015 and 22, if I may. He visited the UAE in 2015, 2018, 2019, 2022. He visited Saudi Arabia in 2016, 2019. He visited Qatar in 2016, Oman in 2018, hosted both UAE and Saudi Arabia in India in 2019, and then again now in G20, that multilateral, and this summit with the Crown Prince in 2023 after G20. This shows the massive expanse to India-Saudi Arabia relationship and the importance that India attaches to it.
Right, Gaurav, in fact, I'm going to ask you to be with us. In a moment from now, we'll have a further conversation as far as that economic corridor is also concerned, getting in more details. Let's now take a look at how the Gulf India rail and port link really is going to be looking like. These are pictures, in fact, of the link that we are in fact telling you about, is what India is looking at very closely, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. Like Geeta said, it's a multilateral project, and all fingers crossed as far as that particular project is in fact concerned. Meltdown in Pakistan, though, over the historic G20 Summit. Pakistanis are jittery as India achieve what they can certainly never do. The G20 Summit in India was a wake-up call for Pakistanis as they admit that their country is indeed lagging behind. The biggest blow to Pakistanis is the ambitious India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor that the two countries announced on the sidelines of the summit. People of Pakistan are furious, stating that netas aren't acknowledging the magnitude of this project. What has come as a major shock to Pakistanis is how gracefully Rishi Sunak embraced his Hindu roots when he was in India. He visited Akshardham Temple in Delhi and offered prayers and performed aarti as well. This is something which Pakistanis are unable to digest.
देखिए बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है जो लोग जा रहे हैं वहाँ पे. हमारा एक्चुअली हालात ही नहीं, हम इस तहश पे आगे हुए हैं कि हमारे हालात ही नहीं है कि हमें वो इनवाइट करें.
बिल्कुल, इवन बांग्लादेश को इनवाइट किया हुआ है उन्होंने.
हमारी इकोनॉमी देख लें आप, आपका मुल्क एक्चुअली तो क्रैश कर गया हुआ है.
ठीक है,
ये तो ऊपर वाली गेम है, पता नहीं क्या चल रहा है, लेकिन हमारे हालात इस टाइम हमारे कंट्रोल से बाहर हैं.
पहली बात तो ये है कि इंडिया और पाकिस्तान हो नहीं सकता ये. दूसरी बात यह है कि हमारे हुक्मरानों की इज्जत नहीं है. ठीक है ना. अगर कोई पावर वाला हुक्मरान हो ना, फिर तो लाजमी उन्होंने बुलाना था, लेकिन ऐसे ही पावर वाला कोई है नहीं है. पता है सब चोर डाकू बैठे हुए हैं, तो क्या जरूरत है बुलाने की.
आप क्या कहेंगे इसके ऊपर कि वो इंडिया वाले जो इस टाइम अपने कंट्री के ऊपर फोकस कर रहे हैं, वो आगे उनकी.
तो भाईजान आपको पता है इनकी कमजोरी है ना. इनकी कमजोरी है ना. ये जो कहता मैंने कपड़े बेच के आटा सस्ता दूंगा, मैं जो शहबाज शरीफ कहता था ना कपड़े बेचूंगा, और तेरे कपड़े लेने किसने? तू डाके कपड़े पहनता है, तेरे कपड़े लेने किसने हैं?
ठीक है,
आई समझ. मैं आटा सस्ता दूंगा, मैं बिजली सस्ती दूंगा. क्या किया है इसने 14 महीनों में? क्या किया है आपको नहीं पता?
आपको पता है पाकिस्तान
अगर इमरान खान होता है ये G20 किया, G20, J30, J14, ये सारे इजलास इधर ही होने थे.
इंडिया है ना, हम साया ममालिक है, वो अपने किसान को रिलीफ देता है, सस्ती बिजली देता है.
ठीक है,
वो अपनी आवाम के साथ ठीक है,
ठीक हो गया.
जितने को वो मुखलिस हैं अपनी आवाम के साथ, उतने वो कुछ हाल हैं जी.
ठीक हो गया.
इसलिए
तो हम क्यों नहीं सीख लेते? देखें, हम ये सीख लेते हैं, उसने बम एटम बम बनाया, हम भी एटम बम बनाएंगे. ये तो हम घास खा लेंगे, लेकिन आगे थोड़ा सा आ जाए. हम ये क्यों नहीं देख लेते कि अगर वो दुनिया की इकॉनमी बड़ी बन रहा है तो हम भी मेहनत करें. हम ये क्यों नहीं देख लेते कि अगर वहाँ पे एप्पल स्टोर आया तो यहाँ पे भी एप्पल स्टोर आए. हम ये क्यों नहीं देख लेते कि अगर वो चांद पे गया तो हम भी कोशिश करें. हम इन चीज़ों में मुकाबला क्यों नहीं करते? हम ये टांग उठाने में, इन चीज़ों में ही बस मुकाबला करेंगे
ना भाई. जब हमारे हुक्मरान अपना किबला दुरुस्त करेंगे ना, तो सारे काम ऑटोमेटिकली. जब ये दूसरे लफ्जों में कह लें कि हमारे गन पॉइंट ये टैक्स लेते हैं जी.
Gaurav is with us. Gaurav, there is some meltdown. I mean, the reactions are, bordering from disappointing for people living in Pakistan who are upset with the administration, with their government, and also that of anger, isn't it? Not just with the current political dispensation, but also with India's growing might really in this region.
You're absolutely right, Sneha. This is a virtual meltdown in Pakistan. But the Awam in Pakistan, the people in Pakistan, they are actually saying the right thing. It's the leadership in Pakistan, it's the civil society in Pakistan that's having a meltdown, including their former high commissioners to India and other top diplomats who just see this as hype and nothing else. Because they're unwilling to face the truth. Pakistan and India, while India is the oldest civilization and living and growing civilization of the world, Pakistan born out of it in 1947 and separated. It's gone down an abyss. Pakistan is in deep, deep trouble. Pakistan's closest allies are today India's ally because, as the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar said, nobody wants to invest in a sinking stock, and Pakistan is a sinking stock. The world has realized it. Their support to radical Islamist terrorism has converted Pakistan into a terror state, and everyone wants to keep a terror state at an arm's length. Sneha.
Gaurav, I'm going to thank you for the moment for joining us with your views on that big story that we are tracking right from the Saudi Crown Prince's bilateral that is starting in just about 10 minutes from now in Delhi's Hyderabad House with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, to the kind of meltdown that we're seeing in Pakistan over the very successful G20 Summit held in India. That also brings us to the end of this edition. News continues on the other side. Thanks for watching.
Rishi Sunak, the first UK Prime Minister of an Indian origin, is also a proud Hindu. The British Prime Minister, who was spotted wearing Rakhis during the G20 Summit, visited the Akshardham temple in Delhi along with his wife Akshita Murthy on Sunday. Sunak, who arrived in India on Friday for the 18th G20 Summit, expressed his deep connect to Hinduism.
Yeah, so I'm a proud Hindu, and that's how I was raised. That's how I am. And yes, we've just had Raksha Bandhan, so from my sister and my cousins, I have all my Rakhis, and I didn't have time to celebrate Janmashtami properly. It's something that is important to me. I think faith is something that helps everybody who has faith in their lives.
The couple, who were received by Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw on Friday, were greeted with Jai Siya Ram. They were also gifted Rudraksh, a copy of Bhagavad Gita and a Hanuman Chalisa.
Jai Siya Ram.
This isn't the first time Sunak has openly embraced Hinduism. He had visited the Hindu spiritual leader Murari Bapu in Cambridge for his 921st recital, titled Manas Vishwavidyalaya.
इतनी सबल राजपीठ पर बैठे हुए होते ही इतनी सरलता मैंने कम राजनेताओं में देखी है। जिस तरह वो गए और बच्चों से मिल रहे थे, लोगों को मिल रहे थे, ये जो है, ये उसका बहुत अच्छा पहलू है।
And what I see Bapu does each day of his life.
Sunak addressed a gathering of people of Indian origin. He said his faith guides him in every aspect of his life.
Always be an inspirational figure.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful.
After the 2017 general elections, he swore his oath to Parliament upon the sacred Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita. As per British media reports, Sunak always keeps an idol of Sri Ganesh on his table. He earlier made an appeal to give up eating beef and claimed he has consumed it. Sunak was also seen performing Gau Puja in London. The video, which went viral, was shot when the 42-year-old visited a cow enclosure along with his wife Akshata Murthy, the daughter of Infosys founder N.R. Narayanamurthy. A practitioner of Hinduism and the first British Prime Minister of Indian descent, Sunak is not leaving his culture and values behind. Bureau Report, India Today. Millet puddings, buns containing millets, Kerala red rice with millets, flat bread containing millet, an elaborate spread of millet recipes planned for the world leaders and delegates attending the G20 Summit. A platter that showcases not just the flavors of India, but also India's commitment in promoting the cultivation and consumption of millets. And what makes it special is that it is not just a gastronomical delight, but also healthy. In fact, it was on India's insistence that the year 2023 was declared as the Year of the Millets by the UN.
Millets are whole grains which pack complex carbohydrates, a whole lot of fiber, protein, antioxidants, and a lot of essential micronutrients such as B vitamins and minerals like iron, zinc, calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, to name a few. Millets are also gluten-free. They have a low to moderate glycemic index, thus help in reducing blood sugar as well as help in lowering blood cholesterol.
Delegates visiting New Delhi to attend the G20 Summit had the opportunity to savor delicious millet dishes from Odisha, thanks to the efforts of tribal women Raimati, Gyuriya and Subhasha Mahanta, popularly known as Millet Didis. They shared valuable insights on millets, sustainable agriculture, healthy eating habits at the venue of the G20 Summit in Delhi.
मो तो दिल्ली जाऊँगी आज फोन आसला सीटी जाइए मत बहुत खुशी लगुच जीवी बोली बाहर देशर लोक भी आसवे सीटी सांगे भी मिसबी तो कभी देखी ना देखी मिसबी कथा भी सांगे और आमर आदिवासी जयंती कर परंपरा अच्छी सीटा नहीं कि सीटी खोईबी आमर आदिवासी लोग कौन कौन व्यवहार कर सीटा भी नहीं कि जीवी.
Not only were millets on the menu, healthy but environment friendly in cultivating, a message India is sending out on sustainability. Millets are climate resistant and highly nutritious coarse grains grown across the country. Cuisines at the G20 Summit were being given special attention, from millet thalis for President Joe Biden to desserts made of millets like ragi laddus and barley kheer. India did it all. In New Delhi with Sneha Murdani, Bureau Report, India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
You are watching India Today.
Hello there. a very good morning. You're watching India Today TV. I'm Sneha Mordani. A quick check of what's making news first. Ceremonial welcome for Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Talks on India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor on the agenda. India talks tough on K-terror with Trudeau. Prime Minister Modi expresses concerns on Khalistani activities, warns against threats to Indian diplomats. Under construction building lift crashes in Maharashtra's Thane, killing 7 labourers. 40-story under construction building lift crash after supporting cable snapped. Rahul Gandhi steps into the Sanatan debate, targets the BJP, alleges Hindutvavadis only interested in power. Actor turned Neta Prakash Raj backs Udayanidi's Sanatan remark. Corruption case haunts TDP chief Chandrababu Naidu has been sent to 14-day judicial custody in alleged 371 crore scam. TDP workers in son Nara Lokesh camp outside jail. And some news just coming in. Karnataka State Private Transport Association staged a protest against the state government freebies. According to the private carriers, the scheme has reduced their income and they have demanded reimbursement from the government. The Federation of Karnataka State Private Transport Associations represent 32 private transport associations. Protests in Bengaluru against the Siddaramaiah government's freebies. Sagai Raj, in fact, is getting us more details. The people really are out on the streets now, Sagai, protesting against freebies that was promised also and not delivered, causing just more inconvenience and pressure on the exchequer.
Absolutely. Federation of Karnataka Private Vehicles Association have called for a Bengaluru Bandh today, where all the vehicles, especially the private buses, auto rickshaws, Olas, Ubers and all other taxis which plies on the roads of Bengaluru are not plying today. They have called for a Bengaluru Bandh, and as we speak now you can see that there is a protest march carried out in the city from Anandra Circle to Freedom Park, where they will continue their protest, and their demand is that the Karnataka government have to give some kind of compensation to all the drivers who are facing huge loss because of a Shakti scheme. And they also claim that due to women passengers who are not travelling in autos, Olas and private buses, which is a major cause, even the other passengers including men and kids are not travelling because of women are not travelling along with them. And sir, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಸರ್?
ಸರ್ 30 ಬೇಡಿಕೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇಯ್ನ್ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಯೋಜನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿ ಬಸ್ ಮಾಲೀಕರಿಗೆ 10,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಧನ ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಈ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿ ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಡಿಕೆ ಈಡೇರಿಸಿಲ್ಲ. ಸಾರಿಗೆ ಸಚಿವರು ವೇದಿಕೆಗೆ ಬಂದು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ನಮಗೆ, ಆವಾಗಲೇ ನಾವು ಬಂದು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ಸಲ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. 11,000ಕ್ಕೂ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಚಾಲಕರಿಗೆ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಭಾಗಿಯಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಗೂಡ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಪ್ಯಾಸೆಂಜರ್ ಆಟೋ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಥರದ ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ಗಳು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ.
ಸರ್ 30 ಬೇಡಿಕೆಗಳು ಏನೇನಿದೆ
ಸರ್? 30 ಬೇಡಿಕೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮೇಯ್ನು ಓಲಾ ಊಬರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಕಮಿಷನ್ನ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಆದೇಶ ಏನಿದೆ 10% ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ತಗೋಬೇಕು. ಶಕ್ತಿ ಸ್ಕೀಮಿಂದ ಸರ್ಕಾರ 4,800 ಕೋಟಿ ಲಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ತೆರಿಗೆನ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಾಲೀಕರ ಮೇಲೆ, ಬಸ್ ಮಾಲೀಕರ ಮೇಲೆ, ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿ ಚಾಲಕರ ಮೇಲೆ, ಗೂಡ್ಸ್ ವಾಹನ ಚಾಲಕರ ಮೇಲೆ ತೆರಿಗೆ ಭಾರ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಮಗೆ ಬರೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಯೋಜನೆ ಕೊಡುವಂಥದ್ದು ಏನಿದೆ. ನಮಗೆ ಶಕ್ತಿ ಯೋಜನೆ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳಿಗೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಇದೆ, ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೊಡೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅವರು ಮೋಸ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ.
So he is claiming that the government have to give a compensation up to 10,000 rupees for every single driver or every single bus, private buses which is plying. And they also say that since the government is facing a huge loss due to Shakti scheme, they are imposing huge taxes on all the private vehicles association, and they claim that even the Ola Uber is charging high commission charges for every single passenger or every single route they fly, and they are demanding all these things to be reduced and the compensation should be given to the drivers.
Protests on the streets of Bengaluru. There's Sagai. What is the government now going to do, or what is it that they're planning? You know, I'm asking you this because all this while it was the opposition BJP that was making noise about the freebie culture and about the fact that it's going to create just so much pressure on the exchequer. Now people are in fact on the streets protesting against this.
See, if you notice, the government have not reacted on this, but today, since all the private vehicles, buses, taxis and auto rickshaws have called for a strike, they have increased the government buses service across the city. From last night till today midnight, the vehicles will increase, and they have also ensured that they have increased the securities across the city to ensure there are no untoward incidents due to this Bengaluru Bandh.
Schools are also in fact suffering. Sagai, schools have had to in fact have had to declare a holiday because of this protest, because of the bandh. Okay, going back to Sagai in a moment from now. Right now we're getting in these pictures. In fact, this clearly is the blowback that the Siddaramaiah government is facing in the state of Karnataka after freebies were announced. Private transport services are not working today, ceases to work today. Schools have declared a holiday. The Federation, in fact, of the Karnataka State Private Transport Association has had to call a bandh, which obviously means that all private commercial vehicles plying in Karnataka's capital city will cease services. This is in fact going to affect several services. The private vehicle owners have called for a bandh to oppose the Shakti scheme that we're talking about, which in fact is one of the 5 guarantees of Chief Minister Siddaramaiah government. In fact, this scheme allows women domiciled in Karnataka to travel for free on non-premium buses plying within the state. Sagai, take us through the key demands of what the private transporters are making, in fact, to the government. What are they saying? Going back to Sagai in a moment from now, we're getting in the details as far as this bus ride scheme is concerned, which has clearly backfired. Storm over Congress's guarantee reignites in Karnataka. The Karnataka State Private Transport Association has called for Bengaluru Bandh against Karnataka government's Shakti scheme, which allowed women to travel for free on non-premium government buses. According to the private carriers, this scheme has reduced their income and they have demanded reimbursement from the government. The bandh is expected to affect operations of private taxis, cabs, buses, cars, further affecting the city's transportation system. BJP has slammed the Karnataka government over their freebie schemes, accusing them of indulging in appeasement politics. BJP's Rajiv Chandrasekhar has also hit out at the Siddaramaiah government for favouring only one community and discriminating against poor and deprived Hindu communities.
शक्ति योजना है फ्री बस स्कीम, उससे ऑटो और टैक्सी ड्राइवर को कोई इफेक्ट नहीं हुआ. थोड़ा पॉलिटिकली मोटिवेटेड लोग नई ऑटो और टैक्सी वालों के कमाई पे बहुत धक्का लगा है, ऐसे सब बातें निकली है. लेकिन जो कस्टमर ऑटो और टैक्सी के साथ चलता है, उसकी जो कंफर्ट जोन है वो बसेस में नहीं मिलती. सो इसलिए कोई भी बसेस ऑप्ट नहीं करता. हाई कोर्ट विदाउट एनी फर्दर आर्ग्यूमेंट्स सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ऑर्डर को कॉपी पेस्ट करके वो अनाउंसमेंट कर सकते हैं यहाँ पे भी रैपिडो इलीगल है बोल के. थोड़ा डेट बाय डेट आगे जा रहा है. तो ये एक पॉइंट हमें इसके लिए स्टैंड लेना है. ये सोच के हमने भी बोला है कि हमारा सपोर्ट एक्सटेंड कर रहे हैं.
Sagai continues, in fact, to be with us. Sagai, what are their specific demands? Talk to us a little about it, because they are also protesting because the State Department, the State Transport Department rather, failed to fulfill their 28 demands. What are those demands? Talk to us about that.
See, there are several demands, and one of the main demands are that of Shakti scheme. Shakti scheme which allows women passengers to use all the government public transport free of cost across the state of Karnataka. And apart from that, they also claim that they have not got any kind of compensation since Shakti scheme has been introduced. All the private vehicles, including private buses, auto rickshaws and other vehicles, are facing huge loss, and government have to consider giving some kind of compensation up to 10,000 rupees every single month to all these drivers. And apart from that, they have also demanded that there are huge commission charges by Ola and Uber, and even that should be reduced. And they are also demanding a few welfare schemes for all the drivers, from education to their children to the insurance. And these are the demands of these drivers as well as the Federation of Private Vehicles Association. And you can see that they are gathering a large number outside Freedom Park. They have started a march from Sangolli Rayana Circle from railway station, and now they have reached Freedom Park, and now they will continue the protest here at Freedom Park against the government.
Coming back to you in a moment from now. In fact, we're getting in all the details as far as Karnataka freebie showdown is concerned. Protests on the streets of Bengaluru, demands that have not been met with, and that's the reason why private operators are out on the streets affecting normal life in Bengaluru city. Sagai, talk to us a little about how, apart from schools, what are the other services that will be affected today?
Yes, if you notice, Karnataka government have not announced any kind of holidays for the school, but many private schools have declared holidays by their own management after all the auto rickshaws and private buses have called for a Bengaluru Bandh, because many of them use auto rickshaws and Olas and taxis, and since they have all called for a Bandh, all these vehicles have not plying on the road, and many schools have declared a holiday for this. Sir, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ಏನು ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ?
ಅಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಇವ್ರು ಬರ್ತಾವ್ರಲ್ಲ
ಏನು ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ ಹೇಳಿ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಏನಿದೆ? ನಿಮ್ಮ ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಏನಿದೆ
ಸರ್? ರ್ಯಾಪಿಡೋ ಬೈಕ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸಬೇಕು. ನಾವು ಟೋಟಲ್ 31 ಬೇಡಿಕೆಗಳನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ವಿ. 31 ಬೇಡಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ 26 ನಾವು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಲಿಖಿತವಾಗಿ 31 ಏನು ಬೇಡಿಕೆಗಳನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಲಿಖಿತವಾಗಿ ಬಂದು ನಮ್ಮ ಫ್ರೀಡಮ್ ಪಾರ್ಕಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಮಲಿಂಗಾರೆಡ್ಡಿ ಅವರೇ ಬಂದು ಲಿಖಿತವಾಗಿ ಬರ್ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಬಂದನ್ನ ವಾಪಸ್ ತಗೋತೀವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವುದೇ
ಏನು ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ? क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है?
शक्ति स्कीम से अभी दो लोकल में सीट के भाड़े मारते हैं. एक 5-5 सीटा डालने को 20-20 रुपए एक सीट को जाते हैं. अभी उन्हें क्या कर रहे हैं, पूरे लेडीज गारमेंट्स को जाने वाले पूरे बस में चढ़ रही. सुबह को 9 बजे आते तो एक कम से 200-300 रुपये हो जाता वंच आने के टेम्पो, जाने के टेम्पो 300 रुपये कर लेते. अभी वो भी नहीं, किधर भी नहीं बोले तो जाना सो कहाँ. अब BTS छोड़ को प्राइवेट बस वाले किधर जाना? प्राइवेट बस वाले क्या भट्टी खाना, क्या उन्हें भी खाना नहीं खाना. अब उन्हें लोन कैसा बनना, इंश्योरेंस कैसा बनना, FC से कैसा कराना, टैक्स कैसा बनना, और ये लाइफ टैक्स कई कुछ को ही पिछली बार कौन सा था? पिछली सरकार में लाइफ टैक्स था नहीं था.
अभी आज बेंगलुरु बंद बुलाया, कितना दिन ये प्रोटेस्ट चलेगा और कब तक आप ये चालू रखेंगे बंद?
अभी 12:30 बजे तक टाइम लेके है. कौन सारी सचिव रामलिंगारेड्डी, वो अगर 12:30 तक आ गए तो वो अच्छा रहेगा. आके लिखित रूप में और मीडिया के सामने बोलना है. क्या करके मैं 1 महीना नहीं 2 महीने के अंदर मैं इसको स्टॉप करा के देता हूँ. तुम्हारे 30 कंडीशंस है वो जो क्लियर करा के देता हूँ करके बोले तो वो क्या है. अभी न्यूज़ चैनल में सभी क्या दिखा रहे हैं, शक्ति योजना का दिखा रहे हैं, और ड्राइवर का डिमांड 10,000 बोल के दिखा रहा है. हमारा ड्राइवर का, ऑटो ड्राइवर का डिमांड है 10,000 रुपये नहीं है. मेन डिमांड है बाइक टैक्सी, रैपिडो, ऊबर, और आके वो व्हाइट बोर्ड में आके.
These are the demands of the auto drivers. These are auto drivers association, where they have also not only demanded on Shakti scheme compensation, but also they wanted to get rid of all this two-wheeler taxis which is plying on the roads.
Sagai, I'm going to thank you for the moment for getting us up to speed with all of those developments from Bengaluru city there. Well, as the G20 Summit culminated, India, in a brief bilateral meeting with Canada, has raised concerns over Trudeau government's apparent inaction to take actions against anti-India elements. India not only has called for timely and appropriate action against Khalistani elements of Canada, it also has warned the country against rising threats to its diplomats. Here's more.
threats to assassinate Indian diplomats, violent protests against Indian officials, and the release of private information of Indian government servants. 2023 has marked a new low for India-Canada relations, marked by continuous protests in places like Brampton and Toronto. With zero action from the Canadian government against Khalistani threats and violence has had a serious impact now on relations between these two big countries, and now it appears that India has read out the Riot Act to the Canadian government in the most serious way possible. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who was in Delhi for the G20 Summit, was given the diplomatic equivalent of a dressing down by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a brief pull-aside meeting on Sunday. Modi made it clear to his Canadian counterpart that India found Khalistani secessionism, murderous threats and open attacks on Indian officials on Canadian soil unacceptable, making it 100% clear that this alone had resulted in a nosedive in relations between the two nations. Without mentioning it in the statement, the Indian government also made it clear that domestic politics and compulsions and the complete disregard for India's concerns over safety of citizens, both in Canada as well as in India, had damaged India-Canada relationship, and that the initiative entirely lay with the Trudeau government to fix it. Body language between the two leaders was frosty from the start, especially when compared to the warmth that was quite apparent in nearly all the other meetings. It is clear that the damaging effects of Canada's disregard for India's concerns were writ large here. As Justin Trudeau returns to Canada after a short technical aircraft glitch delayed his departure on Sunday evening, it now remains to be seen what action he plans. With Palmi Saha in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, so getting in all the details as far as that pull aside with Justin Trudeau is concerned, clearly India has voiced its dissent and the fact that it is in fact taking strong objection to anti-India activities in Canada. It's Canada also now, in fact, this was a pull aside with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and in fact Justin Trudeau as far as the troubles in Canada is concerned, as far as the pro-Khalistani extremists in Canada is concerned. Prime Minister Modi met Justin Trudeau and discussed the full range of India-Canada ties. And on top of the agenda, Gaurav, was the fact that India is extremely concerned about the recent developments from the past few weeks and months or so in Canada as far as anti-India activities is concerned. Something that India spoke about, really didn't mince any words, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. Of course, in polite diplomacy, India virtually read out the Riot Act to Canada. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was very firm. The anti-India activities in Canada, action must be taken against those elements who are involved in the targeting or threatening Indian diplomats or threatening the safety of the Indian mission in Canada. Incidentally, this is a problem which is not restricted to Canada, whether it's San Francisco in the United States of America or the Indian High Commission in London or the mission in Australia. They've all been targeted by Khalistani elements, but all other governments have not only promised strict action but have taken action in some instances. As far as Canada is concerned, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, actually tried to couch it in free speech. And you tell me, Sneha, and it's for the benefit of all our viewers, they can look at these images themselves of a tableau in Brampton that showed the assassination, that depicted the assassination of Indira Gandhi, Prime Minister of India at that point of time, and they have a tableau on that assassination. Is that acceptable? Is that free speech? Is the targeting of Indian mission or threatening Indian diplomats, is that acceptable? And with India giving evidence of involvement of elements, Khalistan supporters in Canada, the government refuses to take action. But a reason for this also is, Sneha, that the Justin Trudeau government is dependent on the Khalistani vote bank. This is nothing but vote bank politics in Canada, which Justin Trudeau tries to couch as free speech, which clearly it isn't.
Well, absolutely. You know, the statement, it's, in fact, Gaurav, I'm going to read out from portions of what was said as far as the government of India is concerned, that there is nexus of such forces with organized crime, drug syndicates and human trafficking. And this should be of concern to Canada as well. India says, listen, this is not just about Indians and Indian diplomats or our places of worship, Hindu places of worship in Canada. This is also about law and order situation in your own country. So you need to do a very serious rethink there, isn't it?
India has given evidence. India has provided evidence to Canada of the involvement of these secessionist forces, of these Khalistani elements, their links to the crime and drug syndicate. They're funding their movement through this. And unfortunately, again, because of vote bank politics, Justin Trudeau government does not take action against them. Incidentally, the blatant double standards of the Justin Trudeau government are out in public domain. The massive crackdown that took place on the truckers, the kind of laws that were used, the kind of action that was taken against the truckers, vis-a-vis inaction against the Khalistan elements. This blatantly shows the double standards. Justin Trudeau, incidentally, is still in India. His aircraft developed a technical snag. He could not fly out tomorrow, but he would perhaps see the kind of anger and frustration in India given his government's inaction against the Khalistani elements in his country. But again, Canada has suffered. You'd recall the incident, Sneha, of the bombing of Air India aircraft Kanishk and the loss of life. More than 300 lives were lost. And India had repeatedly alerted Canada even then about the plot to target the Air India aircraft, and yet no action was taken. So there is a long history of Canada's inaction against the Khalistani elements, seen as vote bank politics, but it's hoped that action would be taken now, given the evidence that's given to Canada, and a lot of it is now going to be put out in public domain.
All right, Gaurav, I'm going to thank you for the moment for taking us through all of those details in your perspective as far as India, Canada and their ties is concerned, as far as that very strongly worded statement from India is concerned. Let's get you more details as far as the G20 meet is concerned. And guess what? There is a meltdown in Pakistan over the historic G20 Summit in India. Pakistanis are clearly jittery as India achieved what they certainly could never do. The summit in India was a wake-up call for them as they admit that their country is indeed lagging behind. The biggest blow to Pakistanis is the ambitious India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor that the two countries announced on the sidelines of the summit. People of Pakistan are furious, saying that politicians aren't acknowledging the magnitude of this project. What really has come as a major shock to Pakistanis is how gracefully Rishi Sunak, Britain Prime Minister, embraced his Hindu roots. When he was in India, he visited Akshardham temple in Delhi, offered prayers and performed aarti as well. This clearly is something which Pakistanis are just unable to digest.
देखें बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है जो लोग जा रहे हैं वहाँ पे हमारा एक्चुअली हालात ही नहीं हम इस तहश पे आगे हुए हैं कि हमारे हालात ही नहीं है कि हमें वो इनवाइट करें बिल्कुल इवन बांग्लादेश को इनवाइट किया हुआ है उन्होंने हमारी इकोनॉमी देख लें आप आपका मुल्क एक्चुअली तो क्रैश कर गया हुआ है ठीक है ये तो ऊपर वाली गेम है पता नहीं क्या चल रहा है लेकिन हमारे हालात इस टाइम हमारे कंट्रोल से बाहर हैं
पहली बात तो ये है कि इंडिया और पाकिस्तान हो नहीं सकता ये दूसरी बात यह है कि हमारे हुक्मरानों की इज्जत नहीं है ठीक है ना अगर कोई पावर वाला हुक्मरान हो ना फिर तो लाजमी उन्होंने बुलाना था लेकिन ऐसे ही पावर वाला कोई है नहीं है पता है सब चोर डाकू बैठे हुए हैं तो क्या जरूरत है बुलाने की
आप क्या कहेंगे इसके ऊपर कि वो इंडिया वाले जो इस टाइम अपने कंट्री के ऊपर फोकस कर रहे हैं वो आगे उनकी
तो भाईजान आपको पता है इनकी कमजोरी है ना इनकी कमजोरी है ना ये जो कहता मैंने कपड़े बेच के आटा सस्ता दूंगा मैं जो शहबाज शरीफ कहता था ना कपड़े बेचूंगा और तेरे कपड़े लेने किसने तू डाके कपड़े पहनता है तेरे कपड़े लेने किसने हैं ठीक है आई समझ मैं आटा सस्ता दूंगा मैं बिजली सस्ती दूंगा क्या किया है इसने 14 महीनों में क्या किया है आपको नहीं पता
आपको पता है पाकिस्तान
अगर इमरान खान होता है ये G20 किया G20 J30 J14 ये सारे इजलास इधर ही होने थे
Getting in pictures from Delhi's Hyderabad house where Prime Minister Narendra Modi in fact is having a bilateral meeting with Saudi Crown Prince right now. These are pictures in fact coming in. This is the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince who in fact is meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This after the G20 Summit being hosted in the country. It's a bilateral that we're talking about, with India looking at, in fact, signing key agreements with Saudi Arabia. India has welcomed Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, and this is a bilateral that is taking place, about to start any moment at Delhi's Hyderabad House. In fact, it is important to point out that the Saudi Crown Prince was, in fact, in Delhi for a 3-day visit. He stayed back in Delhi after the G20 Summit for this particular bilateral, and is going to continue to be in India all of, in fact, today itself. He will be leaving. This is a bilateral that is taking place between both the countries. We're getting in details as to what the deliverables are as far as Saudi Arabia and India is concerned. Key agreements in the energy sector is what both countries are looking at, and also on ways and measures to strengthen their trade ties. This is something that India is also looking at, and so is Saudi Arabia. In fact, what is expected is that the Saudi Crown Prince will be signing the minutes of the first meeting of the India-Saudi Strategic Partnership Council, and this is going to happen at around noon today. Geeta Mohan, in fact, our Foreign Affairs Editor, continues to be with us on that big story, important developments, and also, like I said at the outset, Geeta, important to point out that the Saudi Prince decided to stay back in India for this key bilateral. Just give us a sense of what really is on top of the agenda here. Geeta.
Well, the fact that this is a scheduled state visit, it was to happen for some time now. They decided to have it with the G20 Summit rather than a standalone where he would have had to travel twice to New Delhi. And that's the reason why it is happening just a day after the conclusion of the G20 Summit. Now, India-Saudi Arabia ties, Sneha, has been increasingly improving for years now. And the strategic format that it has now taken is very, very crucial to India as also to Saudi Arabia. What we are looking at right now is the beginning of the bilateral dialogue between Prime Minister Modi and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. What is on the agenda are defense, trade, security, economic cooperation, bilateral, regional, global and multilateral conversations. He did laud India for the G20, successful G20 summit, and he also lauded India to have a full-fledged agenda for him during the talks. There are going to be key agreements in the sectors of agriculture and energy, but also there is going to be yet another very important event, that is the co-chairing by the two leaders of the Strategic Partnership Council, under which again there are two aspects: political defense, trade, political defense, security, and the other aspect is economic, which is connectivity and trade. So on all those aspects, they're going to look at and review what has happened so far and how to take ties forward. On the regional aspect, they're looking at growth, how to support each other, how to support neighboring countries and the region. But there is also a huge connectivity infrastructure project that has just been signed on the sidelines of the G20, a very important one, which is now called IMEC, that's India, Middle East, Europe connectivity corridor. That is going to be very important. And while many ask how the funds are going to come, over here, it is not, while it is a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative, it is not one where a particular country is going to be the key funder. It's not Saudi Arabia. They are looking at how to fund that entire connectivity project, the corridor, where World Bank also could play a very important role. Therefore, the reason why in that picture where the three leaders were standing, you also had World Bank President Ajay Banga. So a very important aspect to the ties, growing ties between India and Saudi Arabia. On the energy front, both countries looking at decreasing dependency on fossil fuels, increasing cooperation on renewables. Under MBS, Sneha, Saudi Arabia has made some very important forward movement, be it on the renewable sector, climate change conversations, or for that matter, freedom and liberty for women in the country. So there are a lot of aspects. On the people-to-people connect, we have a huge Indian community, a diaspora that lives in Saudi Arabia. A lot of remittances come into India from Saudi Arabia. That also is going to be a very key aspect, and how to increase services and manufacturing to ensure that there is growth, and the conversation on a resilient supply chain where Saudi Arabia certainly can play an important role.
Geeta, talk to us first a little about the significance of the India-Middle East-Europe corridor, and how are countries, for example, like Pakistan and China also looking at this development vis-a-vis this corridor is concerned, which certainly is going to go a long way in boosting the economic ties also.
Well, if you look at the map, Sneha, and the map is up on our screens.
That's right.
The Belt and Road Initiative goes through areas just above what the corridor looks like for IMEC. The IMEC corridor is from India through Middle East, which is Jordan, UAE, Saudi Arabia, into Europe. And if you see the Belt and Road Initiative, there are two. One is the waterway linking project. The other is the land linking, where China is using friendly nations, and those friendly nations certainly include Pakistan, where the CPEC project has been a huge problem for India, given that it is in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and impinges upon India's territorial integrity and sovereignty. And then further on goes through Central Asia into various other parts. There are certain European countries that are a part of the BRI project, but there are many others who are trying to resist getting onto a Chinese infrastructure project where there are a lot of Chinese debt, and the debt diplomacy that follows has not been well, or did not bode well for countries that depended on Chinese loans. Particularly an example would be Sri Lanka. But over here what we're looking at is that a corridor project that is not dependent on one country funding the entire project. It's about how all countries come together, counter China, yet look at their own growth, and have institutions, multilateral financial institutions come and fund these projects. So World Bank certainly will be one of the places that the IMAC project is going to go to for funds. We'll have to again look and see what the details and the niceties of the entire project funding is going to look like. But it is an ambitious project, one that will connect India to Europe, to the Middle East, but also will connect Middle East to India and to Europe. So major connectivity corridor, and again we'll have to wait and see how that really pans out, what the reaction is going to be of China and of those who think that there is a Western hegemony at play. This certainly is not Western in nature, because the two major regions fronting it are India and the Middle East.
And the Middle East, clearly, it's the India, Middle Eastern, Europe corridor that we're talking about. Geeta, be with us. In fact, the Crown Prince has spoken to the press. Let's take a listen to what he said.
It's well done, with a great agenda and a lot of announcements that will benefit both country and G20 country and the whole world. So I want to say to India, well done, and we're going to work to create a great future for both countries.
All right, there was a reaction from the Saudi Crown Prince earlier today when he received the ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. We'll keep a very close eye on those developments as far as the bilaterals in Hyderabad House is concerned. Of course, at noon, signing of the minutes of the first meeting of the India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership Council. For the moment, it's time for a quick commercial break here. News continues right here.
You are watching India Today.
Rishi Sunak, the first UK Prime Minister of an Indian origin, is also a proud Hindu. The British Prime Minister, who was spotted wearing Rakis during the G20 Summit, visited the Akshardham temple in Delhi along with his wife Akshita Murthy on Sunday. Sunak, who arrived in India on Friday for the 18th G20 Summit, expressed his deep connect to Hinduism.
Yeah, so I'm a proud Hindu, and that's how I was raised. That's how I am. And yes, we've just had Raksha Bandhan, so from my sister and my cousins, I have all my Rakis, and I didn't have time to celebrate Janmashtami properly. It's something that is important to me. I think faith is something that helps everybody who has faith in their lives.
The couple, who were received by Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw on Friday, were greeted with Jai Siya Ram. They were also gifted Rudraksh, a copy of Bhagavad Gita and a Hanuman Chalisa.
Jai Siya Ram.
This isn't the first time Sunak has openly embraced Hinduism. He had visited the Hindu spiritual leader Murari Bapu in Cambridge for his 921st recital, titled Manas Vishwavidyalaya.
इतनी सबल राजपीठ पर बैठे हुए होते ही इतनी सरलता मैंने कम राजनेताओं में देखी है। जिस तरह वो गए और बच्चों से मिल रहे थे, लोगों को मिल रहे थे, ये जो है, ये उसका बहुत अच्छा पहलू है।
And what I see Bapu does each day of his life.
Sunak addressed a gathering of people of Indian origin. He said his faith guides him in every aspect of his life.
Always be an inspirational figure.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful.
After the 2017 general elections, he swore his oath to Parliament upon the sacred Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita. As per British media reports, Sunak always keeps an idol of Sri Ganesh on his table. He earlier made an appeal to give up eating beef and claimed he has consumed it. Sunak was also seen performing Gau Puja in London. The video, which went viral, was shot when the 42-year-old visited a cow enclosure along with his wife Akshita Murthy, the daughter of Infosys founder N.R. Narayana Murthy, a practitioner of Hinduism and the first British Prime Minister of Indian descent. Sunak is not leaving his culture and values behind. Bureau Report, India Today.
They are strong, powerful, and they mean business. And it was this message that they wore on their sleeves. The women of G20 have put their...
Getting in these pictures, in fact, of the bilateral meeting that is just about to start, in fact, between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. In fact, these are pictures from Delhi's Hyderabad house, the bilateral scheduled for today, a series of meetings, and then the Saudi Crown Prince leaves for Saudi Arabia. He stayed back after the G20 meeting to attend. In fact, this bilateral, like Geeta was pointing out, that this was on the agenda, and he's clubbed his bilateral with the G20 Summit, for which he was in Delhi for 3 days. The Saudi Crown Prince, of course, was in Delhi on a 3-day visit. He stayed back for the G20, for the bilateral after the G20 Summit. Now, what really is expected as far as this bilateral between India and Saudi Arabia is concerned? A series of agreements in the energy sector is what we are looking at. Ways and means to enhance ties, trade ties between both the countries is what really is on the agenda. The bilateral. After the bilateral, in fact, what really is expected is that at about noon, signing of minutes of the first meeting of the India-Saudi Strategic Partnership Council. That also is expected. Later in the day, in the evening at 6:30, a meeting with the President of India, President Draupadi Murmu, and then the Saudi Crown Prince leaves for Saudi Arabia. These are pictures, in fact, of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Saudi Crown Prince, who in fact are at Delhi's Hyderabad house. Well, earlier on Saturday, if you'd recall, India and the United States, also Saudi Arabia and the European Union announced a historic agreement to launch a mega India-Middle East-Europe shipping and railway connectivity corridor. The Prime Minister had already, in fact, made the announcement for the ambitious projects on the sidelines of the G20 Summit.
Backup ID 7E. 110. पहला engagement है summit level का.
Geeta, in fact, continues to be with us even as we stay with those pictures. Geeta, talk to us. What really is on the agenda as far as this bilateral is concerned between India and Saudi Arabia?
A visit that was long overdue. The two sides had been planning a state visit of the Crown Prince for a while now, and instead of a standalone visit, they clubbed it with the G20, which makes a lot of sense logistically for the Crown Prince, a very busy man indeed. But look at the visuals, the body language, Sneha, the visuals of the two leaders, the way they greeted each other, not just during the G20, even when he was receiving the Guard of Honor and later spoke with the media. It is clear that this is only an upward trajectory that the relationship is going to see in the coming years, should the two sides agree to continue working on the platforms and areas that they have that they're working on currently. Now, we do know that there are a lot of things on the agenda, but clearly energy and agriculture will be top of the list when it comes to conversations between the two sides. And then they are also going to co-chair the Strategic Partnership Council. Over here, the lineup of the people in the delegation also very important. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, the National Security Advisor, followed by Additional Secretary Asif Saeed, and our ambassador to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. On the other side, we also have, apart from the Crown Prince and Prime Minister himself, the Foreign Minister, the Saudi Ambassador. There are a few ministers, including the Energy Minister, who not so long ago, the Commerce and Energy Minister, who not so long ago had a discussion with Piyush Goyal, Union Minister, and held a briefing or a conversation at the Saudi-India Investment Summit in New Delhi this morning. So there is a lot on the anvil. Over here, the two sides are going to discuss various aspects of the ties, from defense, trade, economic partnership, services, manufacturing, how to become how to become an alternative in the resilient supply chain conversations that the two sides, that the global community is having. But if you look at energy between India and Saudi Arabia, there is a huge import, and Saudi Arabia is a key partner when it comes to oil and gas. But the fact that they are also looking to shift and to transition into green, into biofuels, into renewables, that's a conversation that you'll see take place during the bilateral between the two leaders as well. the joint statement that will be issued after the meeting is going to be very important. It's going to cover all aspects of economic cooperation, defense partnership, strategic partnership, education, technology. There is a huge conversation on artificial intelligence, digital technology, digital public infrastructure. That's going to be one aspect. And the cultural and people-to-people contact, like we've been saying earlier as well, Sneha, in our conversations, about the fact that there is a huge Indian diaspora in Saudi Arabia, and that makes for a very important soft power for India. India has been using its soft power diplomacy through the people who live, the Indian diaspora who live in various countries. And over here, it's a significant number. Huge remittances come home, but it's also a huge labor market for Saudi Arabia. In terms of services and blue-collar jobs also, Saudi Arabia, most of West Asia looks at India and not at other countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh, where the workforce that goes in are not truly from the service sector, blue collar, more to do with the labor, which also
just coming
comes
back
from India
a moment
as well.
from now. In fact, Minister Anurag Thakur is speaking. Let's listen in.
16% के लगभग कृषि विकास दर ना के बराबर थी, वो लगातार 18% के औसतन चल रही है। जहां एक और औद्योगिक विकास दर ना के बराबर थी, आज देश के बड़े बड़े उद्योग मध्य प्रदेश की ओर रुख कर रहे हैं। सिंचाई योजनाएं नाम मात्र थी, बहुत बड़ा बदलाव उसमें आया है। लेकिन सबसे बड़ा बदलाव यह है कि किसानों को पहले 15 से 16% ब्याज देना पड़ता था, आज वो जहां इंटरेस्ट सब्सिडी देकर लगभग शून्य के बराबर कई जगह पे हो गया है। प्रति व्यक्ति आय जो 12,000 पे थी सन 2002 में, वो आज बढ़कर 1,40,000 रुपया हो गई है। बहुत कुछ बदला है। तब बजट का आकार लगभग 23,000 करोड़ रुपए था, आज बढ़कर 3,14,000 करोड़ रुपया हो गया है। इसका मतलब प्रदेश की आय भी बढ़ी है, प्रदेश का विकास भी हुआ है, और प्रदेश का जब बजट बढ़ता है तो विकासात्मक योजनाओं के लिए उसमें धन का प्रावधान भी किया जाता है। सकल घरेलू उत्पाद जो है वो 86,800 करोड़ रुपए था 2002 में, जो बढ़कर 13,22,000 करोड़ रुपया हो गया है।
All right, in fact, you heard from Minister Anurag Thakur the latest developments, and we're shifting our focus back to the G20 Summit. Of course, the summit is over, but politics over it has just begun. The India bloc once again seems to be divided over the very successful summit. Days after Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee attended the G20 dinner hosted by President Draupadi Murmu, Congress's Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary has hit out at her for her being present there. Attacking Didi, he said that she could have skipped the dinner, citing how many opposition chief ministers weren't even invited. He even pointed out how Mamata Banerjee was seated, in fact, near Home Minister Amit Shah and Yogi Adityanath. But it was Congress's Shashi Tharoor who hailed India's diplomatic success, highlighting how pulling off such a successful event is no child's play. Tharoor lauded efforts of Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant.
সেই বাংলার মুখ্যমন্ত্রী আজ নৈশ ভোজের আমন্ত্রণে সাড়া দিয়ে আগ বাড়িয়ে পৌঁছে গেলেন দিল্লি। নৈশ ভোজে না গেলে কিছু হতো না, আকাশ ভেঙে পড়তো না, মহাভারত অশুদ্ধ হয়ে যেত না, কোরআন নাপাক হয়ে যেত না। এই নৈশ ভোজ ভারতবর্ষের মুখ্যমন্ত্রীদের বড় অংশ প্রত্যাখ্যান করেছে। পার্লামেন্টের বিরোধী দলের নেতা মল্লিকার্জুন খার্গেকে আহ্বান জানানো হয়নি, না গেলেও পারত। কিরকম টান, আগে ভাগে উড়ে গিয়ে দিল্লিতে অবস্থান করছে। নৈশ ভোজে যোগীর পাশে বসে, অমিত শাহর পাশে বসে নৈশ ভোজন করবে বাংলার মুখ্যমন্ত্রী মমতা ব্যানার্জি।
I'm in touch with both Amitabh Kant, the G20 Sherpa, and with our foreign minister, and I would congratulate them because what they have done is certainly very, very good for India. It is not easy to pull off a diplomatic negotiation like this. They both seem to put in a lot of hard effort, and I think one should give credit where credit is due. Some of the other things that I've expressed to you, which are less positive, I've also expressed to them. But as far as the achievement of actually squaring the circle, which is an impossible task almost, on Ukraine is concerned, it's really very, very impressive.
We're keeping a very close eye on all of those developments. For the moment, it's time for a quick commercial break, and news continues right here.
You are watching India Today.
They are strong, powerful, and they mean business. And it was this message that they wore on their sleeves. The women of G20 have put their best foot forward, redefining power dressing. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni arrived at the Bharat Mandapam wearing an all-blue suit with unmissable gold buttons and a statement brooch. Wearing her blonde hair loose, the Italian Prime Minister was the picture of power and grace as she walked down the red carpet for a warm handshake and a hearty laugh with Prime Minister Modi. The other look that caught everyone's eye was the First Lady of Brazil. Dressed in all white and beaming as she held her husband's hand, Rosângela Lula da Silva wore a white jacket and teamed it with a pair of loose white pants that oozed comfort and confidence. And then, of course, the couple that's breaking the internet. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and First Lady Akshata Murthy have been going viral for everything they've been doing. Akshata Murthy blended her Indian roots with British sensibilities as she arrived in the capital, pairing a crisp white shirt and a brocade floral printed full skirt and nude pumps. Akshata's white shirt is from Nothing Underneath and costs about 11,700 rupees.
I actually quite like what Akshata Murthy decided to wear today as she descended down the steps of the aircraft with Prime Minister Sunak as they arrived in New Delhi for the G20 Summit. I think if I had to label her look, I would say elegant and comfortable.
Since then, Akshata has been painting the town red with one colourful outfit choice after another. From a white shirt juxtaposed with pink pants for a stroll in Delhi to this colourful dress for a visit to the British Council. Akshata has won hearts across, particularly for even going barefoot while playing football in her dress with students.
I love that. Okay, I like that. 3 plus etc. Basketball and okay.
These women have redefined power dressing and have served some interesting looks on day one of the G20 Summit. Bureau Report, India Today.
millet puddings, buns containing millets, Kerala red rice with millets, flat bread containing millet, an elaborate spread of millet recipes planned for the world leaders and delegates attending the G20 Summit. A platter that showcases not just the flavors of India, but also India's commitment in promoting the cultivation and consumption of millets. And what makes it special is that it is not just a gastronomical delight, but also healthy. In fact, it was on India's insistence that the year 2023 was declared as the Year of the Millets by the UN.
Millets are whole grains which pack complex carbohydrates, a whole lot of fiber, protein, antioxidants, and a lot of essential micronutrients such as B vitamins and minerals like iron, zinc, calcium, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, to name a few. Millets are also gluten-free. They have a low to moderate glycemic index, thus help in reducing blood sugar as well as help in lowering blood cholesterol.
Delegates visiting New Delhi to attend the G20 Summit had the opportunity to savor delicious millet dishes from Odisha, thanks to the efforts of tribal women Raimati, Guria and Subhasha Mahanta, popularly known as Millet Didis. They shared valuable insights on millets, sustainable agriculture, healthy eating habits at the venue of the G20 Summit in Delhi.
मो तो दिल्ली जाऊँगी आज फोन आसला सीटी जाइए मत बहुत खुशी लगुच जीवी बोली बाहर देशर लोक भी आसवे सीटी सांगे भी मिसबी तो कभी देखी ना देखी मिसबी कथा भी सांगे और आमर आदिवासी जयंती कर परंपरा अच्छी सीटा नहीं कि सीटी खोईबी आमर आदिवासी लोग कौन कौन व्यवहार कर सीटा भी नहीं कि जीवी.
Not only were millets on the menu, healthy but environment friendly in cultivating, a message India is sending out on sustainability. Millets are climate resistant and highly nutritious coarse grains grown across the country. Cuisines at the G20 Summit were being given special attention, from millet thalis for President Joe Biden to desserts made of millets like ragi laddus and barley kheer. India did it all. In New Delhi with Sneha Murdani, Bureau Report, India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
So sorry.
हो आया आया मेहमान मेरा वेलकम करे हिंदुस्तान मेरा हो आया बाइडन आया आया सुनक आया आया मैक्रो आया आया ट्रूडो हो हम पे ये दुनिया की नजरें झंडा है ऊंचा हमारा देखो ये भारत का जलवा G20 करता इशारा हो आया दिल्ली सजाया आया दिल में समाया आया बाइडन आया आया सुनक हो मेरा ख्याल तो ये है चमके ये नाम हमारा पलकों पे तुमको बिठा के स्वागत करेंगे तुम्हारा हो आया बाइडन आया आया सुनक आया मैक्रो आया आया ट्रूडो फ्रेंड्स हैं हमारे प्लेंटी, वेलकम टू ऑल इन G20।
Very good afternoon. You're watching India Today. I'm Nabila Jamal. Let me start with the headlines first. Ceremonial welcome for Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Talks of India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor on the agenda. India talks tough on Khalistan terror with Justin Trudeau. Prime Minister expresses concerns on Khalistani activities, warns against threats to Indian diplomats there. And we're seeing a divide in the opposition ranks as politics erupts over G20 Summit. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary targets Mamata Banerjee for attending the G20 dinner. Shashi Tharoor hails India's diplomatic success. Corruption case haunts TDP Chief Chandrababu Naidu, sent to 14-day judicial custody in alleged 371 crore scam. TDP workers and son Nara Lokesh camping outside the prison. India-Pakistan Super 4 clash moves into a reserve day due to rains. In fact, the men in blue will resume batting from where they left off on Sunday. All right, let me cut across to some big news here. India hosts Justin Trudeau. Canada allows the K-Army event. Khalistan Army referendum has been organized in Surrey, in Canada. Khalistani event that's been organized in Gurudwara in Surrey. Over 6,000 people have turned up for that K-Army event. Permission for Khalistan event has been, in fact, granted. It was earlier denied, but it appears now that they're all going to be gathering at a Gurudwara in Surrey, which permission has been given for. It appears right amid the G20 summit after Justin Trudeau arrived in India. Prime Minister Modi even raised issue of the Khalistani extremism there. We believe that a K-Army event is going to be organized at a Sari Gurudwara and permission has been granted for it. Let me quickly cut across to Amit Bharadwaj joining us for more. Arvind Ojha joining us for more on that. Arvind, please बता सकते हैं कि ये इवेंट कब है और क्या इसके लिए परमिशन दिया गया है? G20 समिट के बाद, डायलॉग्स के बाद भी ये खालिस्तान आर्मी का एक इवेंट, वहाँ पर एक रेफरेंडम भी प्रेजेंट करेंगे, ये इंडिया के खिलाफ है।
बिल्कुल एंटी इंडिया ये पूरा सेमिनार है और 10 सितंबर को ये खालिस्तान रेफरेंडम, अलग खालिस्तान की मांग को लेकर कनाडा के सर्वे में एक गुरुद्वारे के बाहर ये लोग जमा हुए थे, जिसमें इंडियन पुलिस से वांटेड डेजिग्नेटेड टेररिस्ट भी इस भीड़ में शामिल था और यहाँ पर रेफरेंडम को लेकर वोटिंग हुई, खालिस्तान रेफरेंडम को लेकर वोटिंग हुई और ऐसे वक्त में जब G20 समिट के दौरान जो कनाडा के प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे जस्टिन ट्रूडो, उनके सामने बाकायदा इस सवाल को पूछा भी गया और सब मुद्दा उठाया गया इंडियन गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से, और लगातार मुद्दे जस्टिन ट्रूडो है उन्होंने भी ये कि कई बार प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी से उनकी बातचीत हो चुकी है। जिस तरह से कनाडा में लगातार जो खालिस्तानी टेररिस्ट या फिर वो खालिस्तानी समर्थक जो एंटी इंडिया से रिलेटेड वहां पर सेमिनार करते हैं, वहां पर तमाम प्रोग्राम करते हैं, उनको लेकर तो ऐसे में सवाल ये उठता है कि ये किस तरह की आजादी दी जा रही है जिसमें एंटी इंडिया स्लोगन राइज किए जा रहे हैं, जो इंडियन पॉलिटिशियन हैं उनको थ्रेट किया जा रहा है। ये 10 सितंबर को ये प्रोग्राम ऑर्गेनाइज किया गया कनाडा के सर्वे में, जिसमें कुछ मोस्ट वांटेड टेररिस्ट भी इंडिया के वो वहां पर दिखाई दिए हैं। नबीला
जी, तो आपके कहने what Arvind Ojha is saying here is that on the 10th of September this event has taken place. It's already over, so it's happened just at a time when the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, was himself here having a bilateral with Prime Minister Modi apart from the G20 declaration. He also had a talk, a pull aside with the Prime Minister, where we believe the Prime Minister has very well raised the Khalistani issue. Right at that time, simultaneously, there was this event happening by the K Army in Surrey. Let me cut across to Gaurav Samant, who's also joining us live from the newsroom. Gaurav, this has become a problem point for India, and it appears that the Khalistan army is gaining ground in Canada, despite Justin Trudeau very well saying that he will crack down on any kind of extremism. We see an anti-India referendum placed at a grand event with nearly 6,000 people, Khalistani members, arriving at a Gurudwara, while simultaneously Justin Trudeau was here in India.
You know, Justin Trudeau is still in India. His aircraft developed a technical snag, and I hope he's seeing the kind of anger and frustration in India, given the kind of anti-India secessionist activities that are taking place. It's far more dangerous than extremism, which incidentally threatens to harm his own country. And India has warned Justin Trudeau that there are consequences of shielding elements that are secessionists and extremists in his country. India has given evidence of the involvement of these people in narco-terrorism, in drug trade, in human trafficking, and funding, all of that funding the secessionist movement. In the current case, the story that India Today's Arvind Ojha is getting us details about. Imagine, Nabila, armed gun-wielding terrorist pictures in a school in Canada, in Surrey. That was going to happen. Now, when India raised it, there was, there was outcry and outrage that how could such a thing happen in a school? So it was shifted out of the school and shifted to a Gurdwara. But it is for the Sikh community in Canada to actually think, can they permit something like this in a holy place like the Gurdwara? But yet this has happened, and this is the secessionist movement. Incidentally, this Gurdwara was headed by Nijar, who was gunned down because of some infighting that is taking place in Canada, which is currently under investigation amongst the Sikh community. But this is really alarming. We are showing images of that Brampton tableau in Canada, where a tableau depicted the assassination of Indira Gandhi, late Prime Minister of India, and that is being celebrated by these Khalistani elements in Canada. You tell me, Nabila, is this freedom of speech, is this freedom of expression, or is this terrorism that Justin Trudeau chooses to turn a blind eye to, perhaps because of vote bank politics in Canada?
Absolutely, Gaurav, mocking assassination, no matter how pained you are, to have depictions of it through tableaus, etc., in a country where they ideally endorse, or at least claim to endorse, freedom of speech. This kind of freedom of speech is nothing but hurting sentiments. And at a time like this, when this kind of referendum gathering is happening by the Khalistan army, Justin Trudeau is in India, not saying a word about it. And that's what's really shocking. He says that I stand with Canada, Canada first for me, but no room and will not tolerate any kind of extremism. While he says that, we see Khalistani army breeding on his ground. Now, as the G20 summit culminated, India, in a brief bilateral meeting with Canada, has raised concerns over Justin Trudeau government's apparent inaction to take action against anti-India elements. In fact, India not only called for timely and appropriate action against the Khalistani elements of Canada, it also warned the country against rising threats to its diplomats. Let's have a quick look at this report. threats to assassinate Indian diplomats, violent protests against Indian officials, and the release of private information of Indian government servants. 2023 has marked a new low for India-Canada relations, marked by continuous protests in places like Brampton and Toronto. With zero action from the Canadian government against Khalistani threats and violence has had a serious impact now on relations between these two big countries, and now it appears that India has read out the Riot Act to the Canadian government in the most serious way possible. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who was in Delhi for the G20 Summit, was given the diplomatic equivalent of a dressing down by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a brief pull-aside meeting on Sunday. Modi made it clear to his Canadian counterpart that India found Khalistani secessionism, murderous threats and open attacks on Indian officials on Canadian soil unacceptable, making it 100% clear that this alone had resulted in a nosedive in relations between the two nations. Without mentioning it in the statement, the Indian government also made it clear that domestic politics and compulsions and the complete disregard for India's concerns over safety of citizens, both in Canada as well as in India, had damaged India-Canada relationship, and that the initiative entirely lay with the Trudeau government to fix it. Body language between the two leaders was frosty from the start, especially when compared to the warmth that was quite apparent in nearly all the other meetings. It is clear that the damaging effects of Canada's disregard for India's concerns were writ large here. As Justin Trudeau returns to Canada after a short technical aircraft glitch delayed his departure on Sunday evening, it now remains to be seen what action he plans. With Palmi Saha in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, let me take you through some controversy that's erupted around the G20 Summit raised by Priyanka Gandhi, a furor over Priyanka's Inca G20 remark. Priyanka makes a waterlogging claim. The government fact checks the opposition. Well, Priyanka hyphenating G20 with Modi. Is G20 a BJP show, not Bharat's? Congress disassociating from the G20 Summit, it appears, as Priyanka Gandhi makes Inca G20 claim. She says Inca G20, basically making it sound like it's BJP's G20. So the question, of course, naturally arises whether the Congress at this point disassociating from the G20 Summit. One should know that India's turn this was to take over as the president of the G20 body. In fact, Priyanka Gandhi has spoken about it. Let's have a listen what she said.
इनके G20 जब हो रहा था तो बारिश आई और सारा जितना भी वो जहां पे वो G20 की मीटिंग रख रहे हैं उसमें सारा पानी फैल गया है। मेरे मन में एक बात आई कि शायद जो हमारे देशवासी डर के मारे कह नहीं पा रहे हैं, भगवान ने कह दिया कि अपना अहंकार कम करो, अपना अहंकार कम करो। इस देश ने तुम्हें बनाया है, इस देश ने नेता बनाया है, इस देश को आगे रखो।
All right, let me cut across to Rahul Gautam joining us more on that. Rahul, while you had many opposition netas who were present there for the president's dinner meeting with all the foreign delegates, there were chief ministers who were invited. Some of them didn't show up. A lot of them showed up. While Priyanka Gandhi now says that she refers to G20 as Inca G20, almost suggesting that it's a BJP event and not a real national event as such. Do we know if the opposition, particularly the Congress, is distancing itself from the G20 altogether?
Well, it seems so, because as we speak, Congress leader Mr. Pawan Khera is addressing a press conference wherein he's speaking as to how ground realities were concealed at the time of G Summit and how slum areas were covered at that point of time, and the present government was only, busy in chest thumping. However, there were many issues that were completely ignored at the time of G20 Summit. In the same context, Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, who is the General Secretary of the Congress Party, while addressing an election rally in Tok, Rajasthan, she in fact took a swipe at PM Modi, saying that perhaps, the video that we had seen that has now gone viral of, waterlogging at Bharat Mandapam was actually a God's message to PM Modi that he should reduce his ego. And it is because of the fact that people are scared to, speak such things. And that's why this incident had happened. It was basically an act of God, or wrath of God that he had faced. In fact, he said that it is time for him to keep India first. So it seems that this war of words is looming large. And in fact, Congress Party is trying to put its narrative also at a time when, the BJP is going around and saying that how G20 Summit has been a great success on the part of PM Modi, and how it has enhanced our place at global level. So certainly Congress Party is not really impressed, and obviously they are trying to score some brownie points, and therefore you are seeing such attacks are coming in. In fact, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary also attacked Mamata Banerjee for attending that particular dinner. However, it is also a fact that Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu was the Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister, Congress Chief Minister. He also attended that particular dinner. So it seems that, politics, is escalating, and obviously Congress Party is not impressed, and they are trying to attack BJP, saying that at a time when G20 Summit was underway, the government was only, engaging in chest thumping and bravado. However, there were many ground and burning issues that were completely ignored at that point of time.
We'd take our viewers through yet again what Priyanka Gandhi had to say. Let's have a listen while she says Inka G20, referring to BJP's G20 Summit.
आज सुबह तो मैंने देखा कि इनके G20 जब हो रहा था तो बारिश आई और सारा जितना भी वो जहां पे वो G20 की मीटिंग रख रहे हैं उसमें सारा पानी फैल गया है। मेरे मन में एक बात आई कि शायद जो हमारे देशवासी डर के मारे कह नहीं पा रहे, भगवान ने कह दिया कि अपना अहंकार कम करो, अपना अहंकार कम करो। इस देश ने तुम्हें बनाया है, इस देश ने नेता बनाया है, इस देश को आगे रखो।
Let me cut across now to Tamil Nadu's Udayanidhi Stalin, who seems to be doubling down on his jibe against Sanatan Dharm. He posts a picture of a mosquito coil. One should remember this was the same comment that he made about Sanatan Dharm being like dengue malaria, which needs to be eradicated. Here, Udayanidhi Stalin, defiant, posting this very image of a mosquito coil on his social media platforms. While he likened Sanatan Dharm to dengue and malaria, he now puts up an image of a mosquito coil. Of course, we know that there's been complaints filed against him, FIRs in certain states, but it appears that Udayanidhi Stalin has dug in his heels and is almost reiterating his message in every different possible way. A unique way, at least with that mosquito coil that he's put up as his picture on social media. Pramod Madhav joining us for more on that. Pramod, this image of a mosquito coil, while he likened Sanatan Dharm to dengue malaria, speaks loud and clear. Udayanidhi Stalin is unapologetic. In fact, he doubles down on his words in every creative way possible.
Nabila, Udayanidhi Stalin is not going to apologize. He has made it very clear, and now, even after almost a week, he has made it once again that he wants to stoke and keep the issue alive, and that's the reason. Even though, for the past 2-3 days, concentration was on G20, he once again has put this picture of a mosquito coil. First, people did not realize what it was, and then, the people started realizing that he was trying to take a jibe on his Sanatan Dharma, comments earlier, where he compared it to malaria and dengue, and also what he has done is that, there have been a couple of pictures and videos of people hitting his picture with a slipper. He also put a picture of him sitting on, placing his legs on a table with wearing slippers. So he seems to be enjoying each and every moment of it. And he has also made it very clear that he's not going to apologize. But he also is saying that he never called for genocide, and that word was twisted by BJP. This he's been constantly saying as well, Nabila.
All right. So Udaynithi Stalin refuses to apologize. In fact, puts up this picture of a mosquito coil, suggesting in every way what he reiterating in every way what he meant. We have Kovai Satyan of the AIDMK joining us on the phone line. Mr. Satyan, this mosquito coil image that Udaynithi Stalin has put up on his social platforms, how do you perceive it?
It's another desperate attempt of Udaynithi to take the limelight. Not knowing the history, not knowing the political culture, not having any political acumen. He is a new kid on the block, and just desperate to elevate himself as a leader, and just to showcase that he is in the political arena of Tamil Nadu. He is desperate to build narratives. We already have one Pappu for the nation. Rahul Gandhi is already there as a Pappu. Now he is the new Pappu for Tamil Nadu. Hurting the sentiments of the beliefs in majority is not new for DMK because its parent organization, Dravida Kalagam, DK, is known for it. His grandfather, Karnataka, used to do the same. His father, Stalin, used to do the same. Now, going by their footsteps, the grandson is now trying and desperate to elevate himself as leader by hurting the sentiments of the majority.
How are the people, you know, when you speak of a majority, the DMK has come to power with a thumping majority, and if you're saying that this is a type of politics played by the DMK families every generation, people have given them a thumping majority when it comes to the poll mandate. What's the real sentiment of people by and large on what Udaynithi has said?
No, since our party was started, for the last 51 years, we have ruled the state for 32 years. And the rest of the term were not gone all alone by DMK. It was through the coalition. It was at the mercy of coalition they were able to form the government. DMK has never gone all alone in Tamil Nadu. So they know how to play the politics with respect to coalition. And it is not going well with the people because we have the youngest population among the world. 65% of the population is young. They can understand what are they trying to drive. And political acumen in Tamil Nadu is very high with the people of Tamil Nadu, and they will give them a befitting reply in the upcoming elections, 2024 and 2025.
All right. Do stay with us. I'm going to quickly cut across to Narayan Tirupati of the BJP joins us on the phone line. Mr. Tirupati, here is Udaynithi Stalin, who's put up an image on his social media platforms for mosquito coil, almost reiterating his statement that Sanatan Dharma is like dengue, malaria that needs to be eradicated. I'm, of course, interpreting it. Any sensible person would understand what he's trying to convey. How do you perceive it?
No, that shows his immaturity and arrogance. Mr. Udaynithi Stalin, the minister, is exceeding his limits, and he wants a negative publicity, and he wants that, he wants to take the Muslim and Christian vote. That is what we have been reiterating. Even we can say that, DMK is like a gutter, and they have gone to, they have fell into the gutter of Congress, and Congress has fallen into the gutter. And see, we can also say so many things, but it is strongly objectionable. And if Udaynithi Stalin is not going to apologize, definitely the entire India will protest against the DMK. And I think they have decided that their alliance should not continue. That is what I feel.
All right. You're saying whose alliance shouldn't continue?
No, he wants their alliance to discontinue. That is what I'm saying. The I.N.D.I.A.
So you're saying their alliance, the opposition alliance should discontinue as, or if not, you would perceive this as the Congress's stance and all the other opposition parties, if they're linked to the DMK, then it's all their opinion collectively. Is that what you're trying to say?
See, I am not able to hear you because today we have protested against Udaynithi Stalin and Shekhar Babu, the minister, for making irrelevant comments and disregarding, demeaning the Sanatan Dharma, and we have been arrested by the Tamil Nadu police here in Tirukazhukuntram, Chengalpattu district. So I am not able to hear you properly. Can you come once again?
No worries, sir. I just want to ask you, what is the people's perception? Since you're on a yatra, what's people's perception about what Udaynithi Stalin said?
Yeah, people are fed up with Udaynithi Stalin's childish and arrogant behavior with the, in social media and also in the programs what he is addressing. And he is very adamant. That shows their downfall is very, very near. It is not so far away, it's very near.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Narayan Tirupati. He is on a yatra himself. He has been detained by the Tamil Nadu police, he says. But clearly the opposition now, all guns blazing at the DMK sign, Udayanidhi Stalin, who says, I refuse to apologize. I was misquoted. I did not use the word genocide. BJP has twisted my statement, but I will still remain I will stick to my stand and stick to my point where he says dengue and malaria, Sanatan Dharma is like dengue, malaria, it needs to be eradicated. And to almost reiterate his statement, he's put up a photograph of a mosquito coil on his social media platforms. Now I'm going to take you through exactly what the Tamil Nadu minister and MK Stalin's son, Udayanidhi Stalin, said while comparing Sanatan Dharma to dengue, malaria, calling for its eradication. Let's have a listen.
சிலவற்றை நாம் ஒழிக்கத்தான் வேண்டும், எதிர்க்க முடியாது. கொசு, டெங்கு காய்ச்சல், மலேரியா, கொரோனா இதையெல்லாம் நம்ம எதிர்க்க கூடாது, ஒழித்து கட்ட வேண்டும்.
Well, there you have it. Pramod Madhav is still with us. Pramod, a quick word as we see that the DMK has really made its stance quite clear. Have we heard from the Congress at all? We know that at this point, Udayanidhi Stalin refuses to apologize. You had people like Priyank Kharge who came to back him. Even some of the Congress members who said that he said nothing wrong, while you had a few other India bloc members who says that this comment must be slammed, we won't tolerate insult to Hindu Dharma. So it seems like the India bloc itself is divided on Stalin Jr.'s statement. So give us a sense on the India bloc stance by and large. In Tamil Nadu as well, they are alliance partners. They are in an alliance. BJP, the Congress and the DMK are together there. So how is the Congress reacting to it?
Well, Nabila, Congress is like a very close ally of DMK, but in Tamil Nadu, the alliance, every decision is, of course, taken by DMK because being the largest party. And what has happened is that even though K.S. Alagiri, who is the president of the party, has not openly given out a particular statement on this, Karthi Chidambaram, one of the senior leaders of a Congress party from the state of Tamil Nadu, has agreed and extended his support to Udayanidhi Stalin. And in here, any members of the alliance party, nobody has said anything against what Udayanidhi Stalin said. In fact, many leaders have come forward and said that this is the actual root cause, the essence of Dravidian ideology, which is being reflected by Udayanidhi Stalin. And several leaders have only supported and encouraged him so far from CPM and CPI. And this is what we could see as a debate in the state of Tamil Nadu, Nabila.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us on that, Pramod. Now, big Sanatan face-off is back after ally DMK compares Sanatan Dharma with leprosy, AIDS, dengue and malaria, sought its eradication. Congress MP